Inside every next-generation AI chip, memory stands in towers, 12 floors of DRAM stacked to the sky. But walk down to the ground floor of those towers and it isn't memory anymore. It's a logic chip. And for the world's biggest memory maker, TSMC now builds that floor. That floor is called the base die, and with HBM4, the memory generation now ramping for AI, it changed sides. For decades, memory makers built the whole stack themselves, on their own DRAM lines. HBM4 doubles the stack's interface to 2,048 connections, and the base die that has to manage all of them became too complex for a memory process, so it moved to logic, foundry territory. SK hynix, the HBM leader, handed that job to TSMC. Samsung answered by building it in its own foundry. Either way, the wall between the memory business and the logic business now has a hole in the bottom, and it is widening. If you work in or invest in semiconductors, subscribe. This channel maps who actually captures AI's value. Here's what that ground floor actually does. An HBM stack is DRAM dies stacked on one base die, connected by thousands of vertical wires through the silicon. The base die is the loading dock. Every read, every write, every bit between the GPU and the memory above passes through it. In earlier generations, it was a simple relay, mostly wiring, and a DRAM process could handle it. HBM4 broke that. Twice the interface width means twice the traffic to route on the same tiny footprint. And the stack now carries management logic that used to live elsewhere. The physical interface, signal timing, power delivery, error handling, real logic, switching fast, packed dense. DRAM processes are optimized for storing charge cheaply in endless identical rows. They are terrible at dense, fast logic. A foundry logic process, the kind TSMC runs, is built for exactly that. Move the base die to a logic node and it gains speed, sheds power, and leaves room for something new. Custom features. That single engineering decision is the crack in the wall, because once your product's foundation is a logic chip, the question becomes, who fabs it? Now watch how the three memory makers answered that question, because they split. SK hynix, first to finish HBM4 development, first to be mass production ready, and reportedly holding around 70% of NVIDIA's HBM4 orders for the Rubin generation, went all in on partnership. Its base dies come from TSMC. The two companies call themselves one team. SK hynix builds the DRAM floors, TSMC builds the ground floor, and for the next generation, HBM4E, that floor is reportedly headed to TSMC's 3nm class nodes. Samsung made the opposite bet. It owns a foundry, so its HBM4 base die is built in-house on its own 4nm logic process. That vertical play is reportedly running at full capacity, with base die prices raised sharply on AI demand, and it reportedly helped Samsung land OpenAI as a customer. Micron, the third player, held out longest, but for HBM4E, it too is partnering with TSMC on base dies. Count that again. Of the world's three memory giants, two will build their memory's foundation at TSMC, and the third became its own foundry's customer. The foundry didn't knock on memory's door. Memory carried its ground floor to the foundry. And that ground floor is where the next fight starts, custom HBM. Once the base die is a logic chip on an advanced node, it can carry more than an interface. TSMC has already shown custom HBM4E base dies on its N3P process, with GUC, the design house it part owns, building them, targeting roughly double the efficiency of standard stacks. The customers are the AI giants themselves. NVIDIA and the hyperscalers designing their own accelerators can now order memory with their own logic baked into the foundation, compute moving into the stack itself. That flips what memory is. For 40 years, it was a standard product, interchangeable, brutal on margins, one on cost. A custom base die makes each stack semi-custom silicon, stickier, higher margin, and qualified to one buyer. So watch two things through 2027, which base die node each memory maker lands on, and whose custom stacks NVIDIA qualifies first. The commodity era of memory ends at the ground floor. So look at the tower one more time. 12 floors of DRAM, still built by the memory makers. But the ground floor, the one every bit must cross, is logic now, and increasingly, it is TSMC's. The industry spent 50 years drawing a wall between memory and logic. HBM4 didn't tear that wall down. It quietly built the foundation on the other side. The company designing those custom ground floors, TSMC's favorite child, is on screen now.